Hi, sorry.
Hi, that's okay. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Let me just finish this real quick. How was your legislature thing?
It was good. It was good. First day was like everybody comes just for the opening stuff, and it's kind of sorry. You tell I didn't sleep well last night. Yeah, it actually gets a little bit boring after a while, after so many years, because it's all very, but it's good to support my husband and
So does this mean that he will be gone a lot now while they're in session or whatever? Or?
Yeah, for the next 45 days it gets pretty crazy.
And what is his role, or what is he?
He's a state rep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now all the craziness for him starts the next little while.
Did he do that when your kids were growing up?
This is his 9th session, so yeah. Yeah, so he's been doing it for a while. Oh my gosh, I cannot stop crying. Ah!
Wake up, girl.
Last night was one of those nights, like I was in bed and everything, but I just like could not sleep well. Like nothing didn't go into my mind or anything, but just didn't sleep well. Today I'm like dragging.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me.
I've been thinking about what to tell you because you always ask. And so yesterday I was feeling very frustrated, I guess. And it's like, I'm just going to tell her the same old thing every week. It's like a broken record. It's just getting so old. And today I saw a little tiny bit of hope.
Okay. Tell
But
me.
I feel just the whole intuitive eating thing, I'm doing better at listening to when I'm hungry or not. So that is getting better. It's not all the time that I'm doing it, but I can see progress. But it's the stopping when I'm full. It's just getting so old. Just over and over and over and over and over. So today I was eating lunch and I had a bigger portion in front of me and I just stopped halfway through and I'm like, I'm just gonna stop and I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna go to something else and I'm gonna listen to see if I'm hungry or not, because I eat so fast it doesn't come to me while I'm sitting there. So I don't know what hit me or why I did it or anything. I was just like, I'm gonna do it. And I did. I was like, whoa, okay, I can do it.
Okay, and so tell me about that experience. What was that like?
It was good. I didn't even come back to it.
Wow.
I mean, I walked by it a couple of times. Now, if it were something different, like cookies, maybe I would have gone back to it. But I just was like, no, I feel good. I'm satisfied, and I just put it in a Tupperware and put it in the fridge.
That's awesome.
So it was, yeah.
You were more motivated to get in touch with that feeling than you were to finish the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I mean, our feelings change all the time, constantly, for whatever reasons, right? And part of what's good about doing these meetings together is just that regular accountability. It's so easy not to think about it, And so there's something about having accountability where you've got an appointment, you're going to be talking about it, the only way out of it is to cancel that appointment or not show up, or and so there is something really nice about having it on the top of my head. I mean, for me, it's knowing I'm going to be coming on these calls too. It's like, okay, no, this is at the forefront of my mind. This is something I got to always be working on, right? And so that's great. If the fact that we had an appointment helped keep it a little bit more relevant to you, great, right? And then there's going to be days where maybe the external challenges don't feel like they're as much, or maybe we're just finally sick to death of not feeling good about the way things are going, or It can be a lot of different things. I
Yeah.
think the important thing is just to learn from it then and say, okay, well, what did I do that made it easier? Or what could I repeat in the future that would help me to continue that, you know? So let's kind of pick it apart, right? So just for fun, so it felt really good. But I think the hardest thing is that moment where you say, this is what I'm going to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you could recreate that at the next meal, what would you have to do?
Well, my first thought when you were talking about this is no matter what it is or what meal it is, what if I just stopped halfway through and just stopped and thought about it? And then I know that's when I can choose. I either move forward or I just walk away.
There's a lot to be said for that. The only thing I would hesitate on that is I would call it more of a pause and a check-in.
Okay. Right.
You
Okay.
don't have to stop. Like if I'm starving and I'm halfway through something, I think it's really good. That's a really good point to stop and think about it, because honestly, I would have made a lot less mistakes had I done that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have this feeling like I'm only allowed to eat half of this, then now suddenly you start feeling that deprived, like, well, maybe I should just take bigger portions in the first place if I could only eat half,
Right. Yes.
Um, but there is something really great about pausing halfway through. In fact, it's interesting. This morning, I went early with Ken, and he was in a meeting and they had breakfast, and I didn't get a chance to eat before we left. And he's like, and I said, shoot, I need to get something to eat. And he's like, well, just come in here and get some breakfast here. I'm like, I'm not a legislator, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, there's tons and tons. Come and get some. So I went, and of course there was like mounds of bacon and scrambled eggs and these potatoes and some fruit. So I took some of each on my plate, and I didn't take too much, but as I looked at it, I thought, do I really have room for what I put on my plate? And I just said to myself, I'm just gonna eat about half and then check in. But
Mm-hmm.
because I was eating mindfully, and I forced myself not, I was working, I took it back to his office and was getting some work done. And I forced myself not to work while I ate it, because I have a hard time stopping if I'm not focused on whether I'm even enjoying it. But it was interesting how I ended up eating about half, but that's because I was paying attention and the bacon wasn't as cooked as great as I thought it looked. And the eggs were pretty bland because they never can spice things very well when they're doing it for a million people. And, but by the time I was done, I was like, oh, I really was about half, and I threw the rest of it away. But if I had said to myself, I can only eat half, I may have done it differently, as far as like the half I ended up eating was the most delicious half to me. Like the cantaloupe was a little hard, so I left that, and I ate the pineapple because that was soft and I liked that. And so it was more about picking what I really liked and choosing that, and then letting the rest go, because I was in tune enough to recognize I didn't really even like it. I didn't really want the rest of it. But I think it's a great check-in, a way to check in.
Yeah, I like that wording, check in.
Yeah, just kind of make sure you're aware, especially if you're eating with other people or while you're trying to do something else, just to give yourself kind of a visual mark for, I better check in about this point and see how I'm doing,
Yeah.
and just kind of give yourself permission or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to look at chapter 9 today? We haven't really gone there in the last couple of weeks, but it is all about feeling your fullness
Okay.
and how to stop at that point. Because I think that's the hardest thing for everybody. I think honoring your hunger comes first. And then I think honoring the fullness is the toughest part.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're so used to, we don't want to stop for a million different reasons, you know? Um, and that's all humankind, not just people who struggle with food issues, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're all tempted to do that. But do you have your book with you?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's just take a look at it then.
Okay.
I was just looking it over briefly before we started. And the first thing that kind of stood out to me was on the top of page 122, where it says, it, kind of the bottom of that paragraph, the top paragraph, it says they would rationalize that there's no fat, so I can eat as much as I want, right? Do you remember those days? The whole fat-free craze?
Yeah,
Yeah. And there was
exactly.
that woman with it. Did you ever read the book by that woman that had the crazy, crazy short hair? Susan Powers was her name. And
I
she
don't
was
remember.
all into the whole you could eat as much as you want as long as it has no fat in it. I remember that. I bought that idea for a little while. Um, and then he said, but the calories wouldn't even be an issue if people were respecting their fullness level. And I think that's what I like about this is if I can, you just get yourself to trust your body on the fullness level, then you don't have to be paranoid about how many calories there is.
Right.
Because over the long haul, it evens itself out. And then down at the bottom where it says the key to respecting fullness. So let's talk about this. It says that there's 3 things that have to be in place in order for us to really successfully learn how to honor our fullness. And it says, respecting fullness or the ability to stop eating because you've had enough to eat biologically hinges critically on giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. It says, how can you or any dieter expect to leave food on your plate if you believe you won't be able to eat that particular food or meal again? Right? Obviously, it's always tempting to just keep going. Unless you truly give yourself permission to eat again when you're hungry or have access to that particular food, respecting fullness simply becomes a dogmatic dieting exercise without roots, right? So it just becomes, well, I'll lose weight if I eat less, rather than that getting rid of that deprivation that we've lived with all along, right? So how would you say just that one thing, if you think about your week, especially where you struggled, which times you struggled, do you feel like you're honestly giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, or is there, if you're like me, for me there are still some leftover dieting rules that pop up?
Exactly.
Lose weight. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I don't know if I'm thinking this consciously, but I think in my subconscious, I don't think I'm going to be able to eat this food again. Because for me, it was cookies this week.
Mm-hmm.
I decided I'm going to make cookies for lunch because I can do that because I can eat whatever I want. And if I'm hungry, I can have cookies, so I did that, but I just went way beyond.
Yeah.
And
It's
it
kind of
kept
that
going.
pseudo permission that they talk about,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like logically, I know that I can have these whenever I want, but my gut is still telling me you shouldn't be
Yep.
doing this.
Yep.
Yeah. So then we have this like, okay, well, but I'm just going to enjoy it this time and then I'll deal with it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most common issue that I have with it. Or even if it's the feeling that, if I'm at a restaurant and it's really good and that food's not going to be there
Right.
next week, it's like I'm not gonna be here next week to eat this, and so I better enjoy it now. So that is a hard one, and usually when I struggle, there's something in my head that's saying I'm not going to be able to have this again. But even if it's just a convenience thing, yeah, I could make that cake again, but who really wants to?
Right.
It's here in front of me right now. So in other words, I feel like I'm going to be deprived if I don't eat that.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. On the next section on recognizing comfortable satiety, how do you say that?
I don't know.
S-A-T-Y. I think it's satiety, but that just sounds like it feels uncomfortable to
That sounds good.
me. Yeah, and they talk about being comfortable with what it feels like. How would you describe what that feels like to someone for you? It feels
When
like
you're
that perfect point of I've had enough to eat, I'm satisfied, and I don't need any more, but I'm not over full. When you have experienced that, how would you describe it?
uncomfortable.
How so?
Because I always want more.
Yeah, so maybe emotionally it still feels uncomfortable. Okay, so let's talk about that because that is why we keep going because our comfort level says it needs to feel a certain way. What would be, let's throw away all the logic. What does it feel like to be emotionally comfortable when you want to stop?
Like um, I just lost it. Um, satisfying or I'm thinking even um, like I can do, wow, I did that, or I can do this, or I don't know what I'm trying to get at.
It sounds like you're trying to describe what it feels like when you don't feel emotionally hungry. Does that sound right? Like when you feel you're not really trying to feed anything emotionally, so you're feeling like
Yeah.
content, you're kind of believe that it's that you're doing good, you kind of have this positive
Yeah.
attitude about the whole thing. So
Yeah.
when you're not feeling that way though, when you're just having a normal day and you really wish you didn't have to stop eating, what is the physical sensation like when you do finally feel like, okay, now I can stop eating? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the physical.
Now, what does the physical usually feel like? Not when you're eating intuitively, but just like, okay, now I physically feel like I've had enough and I'm okay stopping.
Um, I can feel full.
Tell me what that physically feels like.
Um, are you talking like when I should stop or when I do stop?
Nope, when you do, when you can finally go, okay, now I'm going to stop. Now I feel like it's okay to stop, even though you know you've eaten past what you should eat.
Oh, yeah.
What does that feel like? So in other
Uh,
words, get in tune with what you're normally comfortable with, and let's figure out why we're comfortable with that level.
well, I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, but that's where I go every time.
We're emotionally comfortable with it.
Um, I, I don't know about like how my body feels, but well, another thing that is that my plate's empty. That's when I feel like I
Mm.
can stop. There's
That
nothing left on my plate.
it's definitely easier for me if I have taken a small amount to begin with.
Yeah,
Stuff on the plate is much more difficult. Yeah.
yeah.
As far as physically full goes, um, if
Um,
if this is the size of your stomach, and let's say that a 5 means there's exactly the right amount of food for the size of your stomach without stretching it out, but without leaving any space, right?
mhm.
And a 0 means there's nothing in your stomach and it's just dying to be filled. And 10 means, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I've eaten so much, my stomach physically hurts. Where do you feel? Where do you feel that you are most emotionally comfortable stopping if you could not worry about weight or anything else?
Probably a 7 or an 8.
Okay, so I'm going to just write this down. So a 7 or an 8 feels kind of like a comfortable place to stop.
Hmm. But physically, it's not comfortable because I can feel it. It's
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of both, right? It's like it's uncomfortable and comfortable.
emotionally, it's comfortable. Physically, it's not.
Yes, yes, and yeah, I get that completely. I get that completely. And sometimes I still struggle with that, and have to ask myself, so why did I let myself eat those few more? And it's usually not that much more food that makes the difference
Hmm.
between, say, a 6, where I'm just like, you can feel maybe a little bit of pressure on the outside, on the wall of the stomach, that, okay, it's full and it's comfortable, versus it's a little too
Hmm.
full. And now I wish I had stopped a little earlier.
Yep.
Right. Um, so emotionally, why does that feel comfortable? Let's play with that.
Hmm. Um,
Can you think of
just,
any words you associate with that?
I'm just trying to think of the last time I ate past full and what I was feeling. I don't know. I think sometimes it's um I eat so fast, everybody's still eating, and so I feel like I want to be eating with them.
Mm.
Might
Mhm.
be part of it. Um,
Eating when others are eating, that is
mhm.
huge. It feels weird if you're done and you're just sitting there and everybody else is eating.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's socially uncomfortable. Yeah.
And of course, there's always this tastes so good, I just want more, but I don't know what that's about underneath.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes it can be purely about taste, except that we know that
All the time.
when we're eating intuitively, we're paying attention to the taste and how the taste goes away, right?
Yeah.
I remember that being a very big aha, eye-opening thing for me that, oh my gosh, it actually doesn't taste as good when I start to get full. So it's like that something different kicks in. It's like at first, you really like the taste, and now it turns into something else that keeps me going. Or
I've had some moments like that when I discover something doesn't taste the same way and I still continue eating.
so there's another reason, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that taste is a part of it, but it's almost like we go into denial when it stops tasting great because we
Yeah.
want that pleasurable sensation to keep going. And so even though it doesn't keep going, we're not happy about that, and we just want it to keep going, right? It's like the little kid who can't admit that they're tired when they're just miserable
Yes.
and throwing themselves on the floor, and you're like, please just close
Go to
your eyes and go to sleep, you'll be so much happier. And we're kind of like that with food, right? No, I want it. No, you really don't. Yes, I do, I want one. We're so like that emotionally. It's
yeah.
like we've decided it tastes good
Yeah.
head rather than really paying attention to our mouth. Does this still taste good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's good. That's a good analogy. I'm going to use that one again. It's funny. Yeah, I think for me also, I think there was something about the way I was raised that there's something, or maybe it's just humans in general, but there is something about being hungry to me that has a little bit of frighteningness to it.
Hmm.
If I am headed out the door and I haven't eaten and I think there's not going to be anything to eat and I'm going to be starving for a long time, for some reason that has a little bit of like, not logical fear, but just that kind of like, oh, I gotta eat something to eat. When in reality, I could wake up in the morning here and be busy doing stuff and forget to eat and get busy until noon and it wouldn't faze me. But if it's not available, or
Right.
then suddenly it's like, whoa, I don't like to be hungry. Hungry somehow equates to deprivation or missing something or something bad. And so on the opposite end of that, I think being a little bit too full makes me feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not going to be hungry for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, I remember telling a therapist one time, I liked overeating for one reason, and that was because then I wouldn't think about food for a long time again. Because I was so obsessive with food, and I hated that.
Mm-hmm.
And so being too full was kind of nice because then I couldn't stand food at the moment and wouldn't for a while. And I liked being free of that compulsion to think about food.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of mental, emotional garbage that goes into all this, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a process of learning to really trust. I mean, I know I talk about this all the time, but learning to trust our bodies and the signals that it gives us and really get to the point where we actually know in our gut, oh yeah, that actually makes me so much happier. That makes me miserable. This makes me happy. And kind of redoing the programming that we've had our whole lives where we've been brainwashed by who knows who to believe that, an 8 feels good. I'm not going to burst, but I'm overly full. And in my mind, that's comfortable. And I think it takes enough time of examining that and saying, okay, all right, we went to California Pizza Kitchen for lunch, and my husband ordered 2 appetizers along with the salad we were sharing. And I was excited because we were sharing a salad and that's the perfect amount for me. But then he ordered 2 appetizers. Well, that's like having another meal. Well, of course, the appetizers are great because, appetizers are always the best part, right? So you got to have some of each of those. And then they bring you the bread. And of course, I was really hungry. And so the next thing I know, I'm leaving lunch going, I was like 5 or 6 bites too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the moment where you ate past full, but that's the precise moment to retrain your brain. That's the moment to really look at how you feel and go, okay, how's my stomach feel? It feels a little too extended. It's not physically comfortable. Do I like this feeling? I kind of mentally, I've always thought I like this feeling, but do I really like it? No, not really. It doesn't feel that great, right? Did I enjoy the last 1 cup of my salad? Honestly, no. I started picking through it and being like, well, but there's still some peanuts there. I like that part. And trying to pick through, keep getting all the favorite stuff I could before I really didn't feel great. And so I have to remind myself, did I really like that? Honestly, no. Were the appetizers worth it? One of them, yes. One of them, no. Okay, so next time, what will I do? Do I want to feel like this next time? No, I really don't. Okay, so next time I could pick and choose. Yeah, I like that one, but I also know my stomach only holds this much food. So what are my choices? I could have the appetizer and take a little bit of the salad home to have in the afternoon when I get hungry again, because then it would taste good again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I could just tell my husband, I really don't want appetizers with it. This is going to be enough for me. Get whatever you want for yourself, or, but then I have choices. And so every moment that you have eaten past full, if you ignore it or if you beat yourself up about it, you miss the chance to learn and actually change from it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing like that moment of physically and emotionally feeling like that wasn't good. That's your teaching ground. That's your classroom.
Okay.
Right there. So if you mess up and go past full 40 times this week, then that will be 40 opportunities if you really take them. If you take them, then I promise you there will be less than 40 next week.
Okay.
But if we just go, there was another 40 this week, I'm never going to get it. Say, okay, well, did you take each of those 40 and actually be present and pay attention and ask yourself, okay, how does this feel? Do I love it? Do I not love it? I mean, if you love it, somebody might love it. If they love it, keep going, right? If that's what makes you happy, do it. But if it really doesn't make you happy, then be honest about it and learn from it so that the next time that your brain has thought of something different, your brain has learned it and it goes, oh, yeah, you know what? This isn't going to be worth it later. Okay. And I think the more we do it, the more we recondition our brain towards what is true rather than what we always just habitually did.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay, so let's keep looking at the chapter then. At the bottom of page 123, it gets into this part about how to respect your fullness. That's the huge question, isn't it?
Yes.
And it is the hardest part. I'll be absolutely honest with you. It's the hardest part for me as well, because we have been conditioned to like food, to a crazy point. So let's look at the next page on page 124 where it starts conscious eating. And it's going to go through just the quick little steps to pay attention. And before we get to the first one, I like when it says, let's see, we've broken this stage into a series of steps, which begins with taking a mini timeout from eating. It's exactly what you just said about taking a little time out halfway through. You don't really need to do this at the beginning because you're not going to be full already. But when you get to that point where you're like, okay, about now is where you kind of, don't you already know about how much food your stomach's going to let you have? Mm-hmm. Do you ever get mad about that? Mm-hmm. Don't you hate that sometimes? Yeah. It's like, that is way too little food. Yes. Like, especially when you compare it to what you usually eat. You're like, that's not fair. Yeah. Especially when your husband can eat like 3 times more than that and not getting anything. Take shock. But yeah, I remember when I first found out how little my stomach could hold, I was not that happy about that. Crap. But yeah, this mini timeout will help you regroup and assess where you're at in your eating. It's like a timeout that athletes and coaches take during a game to help improve their play or strategy. Okay. All right. So why don't you go ahead and read that first line of the next paragraph that's in italics.
Under the pausing part or the taste check?
Pause in the middle. Just go ahead and read that paragraph.
Okay. Pause in the middle of a meal or snack for a timeout. Keep in mind that this timeout or pause is not a commitment to stop eating. Rather, it's a commitment to be in check with your body and taste buds. If you thought that by pausing you were obligated to leave food on your plate, you'd be reluctant to go through this step. In fact, many of our clients who initially appeared resistant to this step later admitted that they were afraid that they would have to stop eating from that point on. During this timeout, perform these checks.
Okay, so does anything in there, do you have anything to add to any of that or thoughts?
I think we talked about it already, but
Yeah.
It's just a pause.
Yeah, it's just a way to get in tune, and you still have unconditional permission to eat whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep going.
Okay, taste check. We find that this check is usually pleasurable, which is why we like to begin with it. Ask yourself how the food tastes. Is it worthy of your taste buds? Or are you continuing to eat just because it's there?
Yes. You know, somebody in a training I was just in the other day said, you have to do it until you want to do it. And once you want to do it, you'll never have to do it again. And I thought that's so interesting. That's kind of what this stage is. It's just checking in and realizing, do I want this? And if you do, great, keep going. Yeah. But the minute you realize you don't, it no longer is hard to put it down. The minute you realize, oh, I don't actually want it. Well, there's nothing to fight against anymore because you don't want it, right? Yeah. So think about today. You got the courage to say, I'm just stopping halfway through. I'm going to walk away for a minute. And you gave yourself permission to come back, but you realized, oh, I don't actually want to. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, why was that easy? Well, because you checked in and realized you didn't want it. How do you fight against that? You just don't want it. Yeah. Right? We just wish that would magically happen every time. Sure. But it would if we check in every time and ask yourself, oh, do I want this? Right? So in that case, if it still tastes great, fine. Have a good time. Keep going. Right? Okay, let's look at the next one. The satiety check. I don't know why that feels like such a foofy word to me. It does. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Ask yourself what your hunger or fullness level is. Are you still hungry? Do you feel unsatisfied? Or is your hunger going away and are you beginning to feel satisfied? In the beginning, this may seem like a hit or miss process. Be patient and remember you are getting to know yourself from the inside out. Just as you would not expect to get to know a person over one meal, how could you expect to understand your satiety levels in one meal or snack? That's a really good point. Mm-hmm. It will take time. Yes. Years.
Well, I think the more consistent we are, the faster it will be, right?
Yes. Yes. However, the more in tune you are with your hunger level and the more you honor your hunger, the easier this step will be. Remember to be open to any answer. Yes. There can be considerable fluctuation in your fullness level depending upon the last time you ate and when you ate. If you find you're still hungry, then resume eating.
Have you experienced that where sometimes you were surprised at how much you could eat compared to normally?
Like if I was more hungry or
less hungry, or it's amazing how it fluctuates. Like some days I am just like way more hungry. Usually it doesn't happen at the meal that it surprises me. It happens soon after. Like I'll eat something, stop when I'm satisfied, and then like an hour and a half goes by and I'll be like, I can't possibly be hungry. That's got to be something else. Get a drink of water, whatever. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm genuinely hungry. How is that physically possible? And then there's other days where I'll eat something and 4 or 5 hours goes by and I'm not thinking about food yet. And I'm like, aren't I supposed to be hungry by now? You know? So it is interesting how it can fluctuate. And then where it says, well, at the beginning, sorry, I was just having this thought at the beginning, you know, where it says, are you still hungry? Do you feel unsatisfied? Is your hunger going away and you're beginning to feel satisfied? I think it's interesting how many different variations of that there can be. Like it just feels, sometimes it feels like, okay, it either tastes good or it doesn't, and I'm either full or I'm not. But in reality, sometimes the answer is that really doesn't taste good to me anymore, and I'm not full yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That happens sometimes too, where I think, okay, I really like this. But then when I check in, I'm like, I really don't want this. And so I have to think of something else to eat or, you know. So, and the nice thing about that is as soon as you realize you don't really like it and you give yourself permission to switch to something else, then you can keep enjoying it, you know, until it's over. Any more thoughts on that one?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Oh, I liked the remember to be open to any answer instead of like you just were saying, but opposite, like I'm not really enjoying this, but I'm going to keep going. Just remember to be open that, oh, I don't have to eat this. I can eat something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And be open to the fact that the answer might be that you're totally loving it and still enjoying it. But like
Yeah.
sometimes we're afraid we're going to be told to stop by our own body, right? Oh, if I check in, it's going to tell me I have to stop eating and I'm really liking this. Well, maybe the answer is that you're enjoying it and you can keep going.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be thinking that this is all a trick to get you to stop eating all the time.
Right.
Right.
Another diet thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just a diet in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So keep going.
Okay, when you finish eating, whatever the amount, ask yourself where your fullness level is now. Did you reach comfortable satiety? I keep wanting to say satiety because
I know.
that's what Molly, my daughter, says. She took a nutrition class, and
I'll tell you what, I'm going to look this up
okay.
right now. SSATIETY pronunciation. Here we go. Is my sound on?
Satiety, also satiety.
Oh, it's
Satiety, also satiety.
okay. So it's either what. No wonder we don't know how to say it. It's both. Okay, now I feel better.
Okay.
Satiety. Okay.
Okay. Did you surpass it? By how much? Use the fullness discovery scale to help you get in touch. Note, this is the same scale as the hunger discovery scale on page 126. Only now we're focusing on fullness.
Yeah. Okay, so that's exactly what I was saying, that it doesn't matter wherever you end up stopping, check in and figure out, oh, was that too much? And if so, by how much? Right? So literally after that lunch, it was like, okay, that was too much. And by about as much as I ate of that second appetizer was too much, right?
Yeah.
So that's good for next time because now I'll learn that and remember it a little bit more. Okay, let's see. Next, discovering your fullness level. Go ahead.
Okay. Discovering your fullness level will help you identify your last bite threshold.
I love that line, the last bite threshold.
This is the end point. You know that the bite of food in your mouth is your last. Fini. It may take you a long time to get to this point.
Yes, so be patient.
Yes. The longer you have been disconnected from your body's sense of fullness, the longer it will take to identify this point. If you honor your hunger, it is much easier to know fullness. If, however, you do not eat from biological hunger, how could you expect to stop from biological fullness or to even know what it feels like? Please be patient with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you start eating when you weren't hungry in the first place, it's really hard to know. Because it's going to take so little to get you to a point where you probably should stop, right?
Right.
Much easier if you have hunger to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that it's that last bite threshold. Have you experienced that before?
I don't know.
It's just kind of that moment where you're eating, you're kind of checking your eating, and you get that, you just kind of know, all right, this is the last bite. You're like, okay, I actually am satisfied. I'm comfortable. It's kind of losing its taste to me. This is the perfect time to stop. And it's nice when you start figuring that all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time. I don't know if anybody does it perfectly all the time. But when you start doing it consistently and you start recognizing, oh, okay, that is the moment to stop. And that's where we have to work to really trust our bodies to the point where we can honor that. You know, like I was thinking about this the other day. I'm doing a presentation on connecting with some people and giving a speech. And I was thinking about, you know, when you feel connected to someone, really connected to someone, how would you say that feels like? What's that like?
You feel like you can talk to them about anything. You can share your feelings. You can be vulnerable. You can call them anytime. You can I don't know.
Okay, so do you feel like if you're really connected to someone, if you think of like a best friend or something, and you feel like, can you completely trust them? Like everything they say would be in your best interest, right? They're not going to ever lie to you. So you can totally trust them. Mm-hmm. They get you, right? So if you explain stuff to them, they totally like, I get that completely.
Yeah.
So now if you think about to be connected to yourself, that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to the point where we are really aware of our own, like if I'm connected to somebody else, I understand their feelings. I know what they're thinking about. I know what they're feeling. One of my best friends I've had since I was 10, her mom just died Saturday. And she took care of her mom in her house for over 10 years. And it was a really huge challenge. And of course, my mom's in my house. And so we've spent years and we understand each other completely on this level. And as soon as her mom died, I just started bawling. And it's not that I was close to her mom, but I knew exactly what she's going through. You know, I can picture not only is it your mom and you've lost your mom, but she has the added guilt, like, did I take care of her good enough? And the fear of when I have problems with my siblings. And, you know, it was just like this connection we've got. So you think about if you can have that, develop that connection with yourself, where I trust my feelings. I understand my feelings. I've done this work of really getting to know myself and feeling like, you know what, if my body tells me it's time to eat, I trust my body. It's time to eat then, right? I'm not going to question that. And if my body tells me, yeah, you know what, this is the perfect time to stop and you're going to be like perfectly happy right here if you stop right now. If I'm really connected with myself, I trust that feeling. Mm-hmm. I say, oh, you know what, I would not go past that. Right. So if I have a really trusted friend that says, oh, this is the perfect thing for you. I've been looking, this is exactly what you need to do. I'm going to check into it because they know me. And so the goal, I think, is to get to know ourselves that well and to be so in tune with our body to really master it to the point where we just trust it. If it says it's time to stop, even if it seems like it's wonderful, in my brain, I want to go, oh, okay, I got to listen to that feeling because if I keep going, I'm going to regret it. Right. Mm-hmm. Or if it says, no, you keep going, you need more food, then I listen to that too, rather than, you know, all the millions of diets I've trusted over the years instead of my own body.
Yeah.
So I think for me, this truly is a process of trusting God, because I feel like if I trust God, then I'm not trying to turn to my body to solve things it can't solve. And then to trust my body and listen to what it has to say, because I think I think our bodies have been programmed perfectly. And I think there's very few people in the world that their bodies don't tell them exactly what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat. But I think we're so out of touch with that. And then to trust myself that I can do those things. I can follow through on listening to those things and do whatever I need to do. But that's why I have to put the God piece into this instead of it being just about the body. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't have a God I can trust, if I don't have somewhere to turn for the spiritual, emotional, and it's just about this physical, then all this has not, I don't have any way to solve all this over here. I have to have someplace more powerful that can deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
Then I can let the body do its own job.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
When you first started talking about that, I've always felt like Derek knows me better than I know myself. So I totally get this part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not even
Yeah.
getting myself.
Well, and didn't you grow up? I mean, I grew up really feeling like my body was the enemy. I really did. Even when I was young, and I mean, I was in the Miss Utah pageant and I was all this stuff, you would think I would have been comfortable with my body, but I always felt like my body was just waiting to explode and turn fat. And, I just had this sense of I couldn't trust it. My parents were overweight and I was always told, if you're not careful, you'll be just like me. If you're not, whatever. So I just always felt like, oh, this is kind of what I'm doomed to become.
Oh.
And then you learn to diet and to deprive it. And of course, when you're binging on food from the time you're young, you also believe, well, I can't trust my body. Well, that's not my body telling me that. That was my emotions and my brain telling me that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been this big process of recognizing, oh, when God says this was the greatest gift he gave me was this body, he actually meant that. It was a gift and it was programmed great. And then I think of what I've done to this poor body, and I think of how good it's been to me. I've shoved extra food in it and it's like, okay, well, we'll find some place to put that until we can try to use it again later. And of course, you don't ever give us a chance to use it again later. So we're just going to try to keep it together the best we can. It's not like it gave me a sudden heart attack because I shoved too many McDonald's burgers in it. It did the best it knew how to do, And so now I'm trying to become friends with that body again and listen to it and connect to it, just like I would try to connect to somebody else that I want to have a good relationship with. Well, should we keep going?
Yeah, I like this.
Okay. So let's see. Let's start. Go ahead and start it. Don't feel obligated.
Okay. Don't feel obligated to leave food on your plate. Ugh, that was so hard. If you find that you have a level of resistance for this activity, it may be from past dieting experience. You may be feeling obligated to leave food on your plate, which is a remnant of the diet mentality. No, I don't do that. Remember, there is no commitment to leave food on your plate. The commitment instead is to getting to know your satiety level and your taste buds. It's perfectly normal, even when you discover your specific satiety level, to opt to overeat. That's okay. We have found that many clients continue to opt for more food. They are still testing the unconditional permission to eat. After a while, when the newness wears off and the deprivation feelings subside, you will find that it's quite easy to leave food on your plate. It does require, however, a degree of consciousness checking in with yourself.
There's that checking in with ourselves that we've been talking about that's so crucial, right?
Yes. But if most of the time you can recognize your fullness and respect it, it will make a considerable difference in your physical comfort level and peace of mind.
I like that it talks about most of the time.
Yeah.
Because I think too often we are focused on perfection. We're focused on what I'm going to be able to do this perfectly all the time. And I don't know if anybody ever does it perfectly all the time. People get eating at a dinner party and something's really special. And next thing you know, like, oh, I ate too much. But most people don't make a massive deal out of it. Most people don't turn it into another week of binging.
Right.
And so I think it's getting rid of that all or nothing thinking and just being kind to yourself and getting in this habit. And once it's a habit, then an occasional blip here or there is not going to matter at all, right? So I like that. So, okay, so those are some of the basic things we're talking about. So we pause in the middle, just like you identified right at the beginning here today. And then we have a taste check, a satiety check, fullness level. So do you understand the difference? How would you say the difference between a satiety check and a fullness check? Let's see. Ask yourself what your hunger is. Are you still hungry? Do you still feel unsatisfied? Your hunger going away?
Oh, the next one is when you're done.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So it's like when you're checking in, it's like, oh, how is that level doing? Because it may not be done. And
Yeah.
then you're done saying, okay, this was about where I felt comfortable stopping, and kind of identifying that. And they like to give it a number because it just makes it a little more concrete.
Mhm.
Like we were saying, I think traditionally we're used to stopping at like an 8 or a 9, right? Or maybe a 7, 8, depending on the day. But and it's not to that point where we're miserable, but we're comfortable with a little too much all the time. And then when we find ourselves being more comfortable at a 6 or whatever, then we start recognizing, okay, that's my perfect level I want to aim for. Then don't you think it'll also be easier to kind of reach that last bite threshold when you've identified that number so well, because
Yeah.
you kind of know it's coming and you know what it feels like when it's on its way,
Yeah.
rather than, it sneaks up on you sometimes. or it blew right past you. You're like, now I'm at an 8 and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't even check in. Okay.
Yep.
And then, so discovering the last bite threshold and then feeling like you don't have to leave food on your plate. And again, for me, it's easier the less I can take in the first place. And I give myself permission to take more if I want more, but it's so much easier to stop if I've kind of estimated about how much I think is going to work. And oftentimes I'm good enough at it now that oftentimes I'm pretty right, Another thing that I notice, and I don't know if this applies to you or not, I often want something sweet after lunch and dinner. Yeah.
All the time.
And if you study how our bodies work and stuff, that's pretty normal in almost every country in the world. They'll give you something sweet after just to satisfy that sweet tooth. Or they say that in your brain, it actually turns off the desire to eat. And so I try to take that into consideration sometimes, unless I'm really loving what I'm eating. Sometimes I would rather have one more bite of what I'm eating than worry about anything sweet. But sometimes I know I'm going to want something sweet. And so I'll be like, back off like one bite earlier and let myself have, this hard candy that's sitting in the whatever, something like that, where I can just like, I'm going to toss that in. Or one of my pet peeves with my husband is we'll go out to eat on a date. And then when we're done and I've let myself eat till I'm perfect, he'll say, you want to go get some frozen yogurt or something? Like,
Why didn't you tell me that?
tell me, because I didn't leave any room for that. And now I want that, and so then I'll get it anyway sometimes, but, so it's like training him. Are we going somewhere after this? Because if we're going somewhere, I want to leave enough room to have it, so he tries to pay attention to that now if I remembered it on. But okay, so let's look at the next part here. Just saying, oh good, we just have a few pages left on that. This is a good chapter. This one should be pinned on every refrigerator, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. How to increase consciousness. And it says it's very difficult to do 2 conscious things at once. We just can't. We already know we don't multitask as well as we think we do. While you certainly may juggle a zillion activities, your mind focuses primarily on one. That's why, for example, so many people lock their keys in their car. Their minds are focused somewhere else, such as getting to office on time or something, and we just can't do 2 things at once. So this part is talking about one of the best ways to be able to stop eating is to, number 1, eat without distraction, reinforce your conscious decision to stop, or your decision to stop. So the first one, let's just summarize for a minute. It talks about how value and enjoy the eating experience when possible. And then they give the example of the lawyer, and she would always be doing something else, doing her law work, reading briefs and stuff while she's eating lunch. And then once she started to stop doing that, it was easier to kind of pay attention and detect that she's full earlier and be done, and then go back to doing her work. And she started having more continual success. So tell me about your experiences as you've tried. How are you doing on getting rid of distractions while you eat?
Well, I think we've talked about this, and this like goes against all the rules, but to me, when I have a distraction, I eat slower.
Interesting. Tell me about that.
Well, if I take lunch over to my desk, I'll take a bite and then I'll type or check an email or work, and then I'll take another bite. Whereas if I'm just sitting there, I just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat.
Okay. So it helps you slow down. Does it help you in your ability to focus on how satisfied you are?
I don't know. I don't know if I've practiced it enough.
The other thing is, does it allow you to really taste the food and enjoy the food while you're eating it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to pay more attention.
So here's some thoughts I have. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it that way, but here's some thoughts how maybe you could do both. So I'm just thinking, when you eat that bite, if you could stop what you're doing enough to really focus on it and taste it and feel what it feels like in your mouth and enjoy it and swallow it, and then do a little bit of work and go
Yeah.
back to the next bite, then I think you could get as much pleasure out of that as you want. I think the problem comes when you put the bite in your mouth and your brain is all over doing your work, and it's not enjoying the food, and it's not tasting it, and it's not enjoying that texture, and it's not checking in to see, are you satisfied? And it's really hard to stop if you never even got to enjoy what you had.
Right.
Right. For me, like we talked about how little food your body actually wants to have, which is so annoying sometimes. But the more dedicated I've been to eating this way, the easier it's been to force myself to stop and focus on it instead of trying to and I'm the ultimate multitasker. I'm really, really bad at doing that. So I have to literally feel like I'm almost sitting on my hands to sit down and just eat. But it has made a huge difference because there's a part of me that feels like, you know what, if I only get this much 3 or 4 times a day, I don't want to miss it. Right? I don't want to be typing because then it's like I didn't even get to do it. Then all I did was fill my stomach. You might as well put a feeding tube down my nose.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to taste it. I didn't get to enjoy it.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So it's like if this is all I get, I'm going to make sure it tastes fantastic. Make sure it's something I really want. And I'm going to make sure I get to enjoy every bite of it. And then when I'm done, I can stop and do other things and focus on that. But otherwise, I kind of feel ripped off. It's kind of like when you're eating movie popcorn or whatever, you get to the bottom and you're like, where did it all go? Because you didn't even get to taste it. It's a little bit annoying. You got all the calories and none of the taste.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, that's probably been the biggest motivator to eat without distraction. And I'm getting better at it. I don't always, I don't think we'll always do everything. But I do it because it's the only way I can actually taste and enjoy it. And there's times, to be honest with you, I always enjoyed eating and reading at the same time. I enjoyed all those kind of things. But I had to admit to myself that I couldn't taste things as well because I just couldn't do 2 things at once mentally. So for me, that was the biggest reason to stop multitasking. Right. So, and I think you mention often that you think you eat too fast. I think, maybe try experimenting this week. If you really are focusing on your food, how fast do you eat? Because if something tastes fantastic and you're focused on it, you're probably not going to shove it down your throat really fast, right? You're going to probably remember we talked about when I was last summer and I got that drink and I was so surprised at how long it lasted when I really tasted every bite, every sip of it.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. When you really are tasting it, if I eat my husband will take a spoonful of ice cream that's like huge. And I'll think, he didn't even, half of that didn't even touch the inside of his mouth. It really didn't. It went all the way down quick. So he missed it. If you take a small bit, then you get to enjoy all that. And then there's still a whole lot more left waiting for you to keep enjoying it. So that's my motivation to eat slow. It's really not about time. It's about how much enjoyment did I get out of what I was able to get.
Okay.
So think of it as an enjoyment factor.
Okay.
How can I enjoy this food? And then this part that says reinforce your conscious decision to stop. This is also helpful. There's a lot of people just when they get to that last bite threshold, they do something physical that kind of signifies that to them in their mind. They may push their plate away. They might put their napkin down on the table or over their food. Just something that kind of physically reinforces I'm done. so that you're not tempted to keep going back and snacking on it or picking at it, or especially if other people are eating and you're done, there's always that temptation to keep snacking, always. It talks about, taking leftovers home, that can be helpful. Ask them to put it in a bag for you while you're waiting. And then it says, defend yourself from obligatory eating. This usually means practicing saying no, thank you.
Oh.
And that is really hard. Yeah, it's a lot easier to say.
Last night at our, we had our first self-reliance class.
There you go.
And it was great.
Good.
I had eaten and I went and there was popcorn there. I'm like, oh, great. But I just told myself I'm going to put some in a baggie because I brought Derek some snacks. And so he ate one of them. So I used the baggie and I just put some in there and I brought it home. So,
good for you. And you got to enjoy it when you were ready to.
I actually haven't even eaten it yet.
Isn't that funny? Isn't it funny how our brain tells you need that right now?
Yeah.
And then like when you really experiment with that, it's like, nah, I really don't.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's really cool. I love lessons like that. But yeah, it just talks about you're in charge of how much you get to eat and drink. That's your choice, nobody else's. But it can be hard socially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the fullness factors, talking about honoring both hunger and fullness. Oh, this is talking about, how could I be so hungry again so soon? Again, we talked about that just trust your body. If it says you need more, give it more. If it says you don't see what happens with it. And then when it says the amount of time that has passed since the last time you ate, the more often you eat, the less hungry you'll be. That's kind of obvious. And then this has been found to be true in nibbling studies. So these are studies where people are given several snacks or mini snacks throughout the day. And the nibblers are constantly less hungry than those who are fed the identical same calories in 3 different meals. So there is something about, okay, I'm hungry, I give myself a little snack. Not when I'm hungry again later, give myself a snack. And you will actually eat less than the people who eat to a big amount of fullness often throughout the day. So I think the point is you don't need to try to do one or the other. Just trust whatever your body is telling you it needs that day. Big deal, right? While the purpose of these studies was to examine the metabolic effects of snacking compared to traditional meals, the researchers consistently noted that the nibblers were less hungry, even though the calories and fat were identical in both groups. Really interesting. And then, of course, the kinds of foods you eat influence the subsequent food intake by their contribution to the total amount of food and energy in the stomach. Other food factors such as fiber are going to affect how full you are, water retention properties, protein seems to have a suppressive effect. So in other words, all this is going to have a huge effect on how hungry you are. And so you can't freak out about it too much. If your stomach is empty, you'll eat more than if some food is still left in your stomach. Initial hunger levels, social influence. I think we kind of talked about most of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I highlighted at the bottom of that section, make eating a conscious activity with purposeful food choices.
Okay.
I think the more we do that, the easier it becomes to learn to trust this body. And like we talked about before, though, there's going to be lots of times where you eat past and then use that as your classroom. That's your moment to learn. Okay, what does this feel like? Do I like it? Okay, not so much. Where do I wish I had stopped? Okay, that would have felt a little bit better. Okay, next time that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
You can even practice it. So one of the things I'm using in this keynote that I'm getting ready is I keep thinking about, in fact, maybe I'll do like a monthly webinar on it. I keep thinking about playbooks. In sports, they have playbooks where they keep all the individual plays. And to make a play, what do they call that? The playbooks where they keep all of the, could have gone right out of my head. Anyway, when they know, they make up scenarios for every possibility. So they say, okay, if we're in this position and somebody throws the ball to here, what do we do in this situation? And they draw it out. Okay, if that happens, then this particular person goes to this position and this person tackles this person and this person's going to run back here and they're going to throw the ball over here. They literally can sketch it all out, even though it's just a hypothetical situation. And they practice that situation over and over and over. So they run that play. So they say, okay, here's this play, go out to the field, recreate it, try it, run it again, run it again, run it again, run it again, run it again. So that those players always know, in this situation, this is what we do. And they do that for a million different situations. So they have this playbook with all these different scenarios, possible scenarios. And they create a plan for what am I going to do in that situation, right? And the more they practice that, the easier it is to do in real life. And what they've discovered is that, and this isn't new, but they've discovered that athletes who practice it in their head, that's almost more powerful. I mean, as powerful, you still have to practice it physically, but it's as powerful as practicing it physically. So they sit there in bed at night and practice the same play or the same ski jump or the same, goal over and over and over in their head and do it perfectly in their head over and over and over and over. And that helps them to do it perfectly in real life. So if you think about what are the plays that I'm going to run into this week, right? What's my playbook for when I'm in X situation? Okay, so today, what's my next playbook? The next time I go to a restaurant and Ken orders 2 appetizers, because it's not the first time it's happened, it won't be the last time it's happened. So what's my play going to be? Here's, I thought I was going to have the perfect amount of temptation, half a salad, and they would bring the bread. That was all I was going to be tempted with. And now suddenly there's 2 or 3 appetizers on the meal. What's my playbook going to say? And how am I going to practice that ahead of time? Well, I can't just go practice at a restaurant. Okay, I'm going to pretend to be sitting here and would you please put too much food on my plate for a while, but I can practice mentally. I can say, okay, well, let me think. Next time I go to this restaurant and this happens, how do I want to handle it? Well, I'm probably next time I will make it my point to be drinking lots of water, while they're eating appetizers, because I was so hungry. That's the problem with appetizers. You're so hungry, you don't want to miss them because you just want to fill up that hunger. And then by the time your food comes, it's too late, right? So you have to kind of have something in mind of what you're going to do. So maybe, think about this week, what do I need to add to my playbook? What plays do I need to script out? The next time I'm hungry, or the next time I'm not hungry and I feel like I'm going to go eat, what's my playbook going to be? What's my game plan? And the next time I'm really enjoying my food and I realize that I'm starting to get full, what's my game plan? And practice them in your mind.
Cool.
And you can even review in the morning what game plans you think you're going to need that day. Okay, here's my situation today. I'm home or I'm at work or I'm going to be going to this thing. What game plan am I going to pull out of my book? And then just rehearse them over and over again.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so just have fun practicing this week.
Okay.
Good, bad, and otherwise. It's all good if you use it as part of the classroom.
Okay.
Right? All right, and if you need me ahead of time, you always know where to find me. Right?
Okay.
All right, sounds good. I will post this on the website and get back to you soon.
Okay.
I'm proud of you. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.